Hong Kong pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong was handed a 13.5-month jail sentence on December 3rd, after pleading guilty to inciting an illegal assembly during last year's protest. Wang, along with activists Agnes Chow and Ivan Lam, will also handed a sentence of 10 months and 7 months in jail, respectively. Hong Kong residents were very sad and angry about their detention because people were thinking they were just paying bail. With most democracy activists in Hong Kong increasingly fleeing overseas, the remaining activists in Hong Kong are under severe pressure. When the court sentenced him to jail, Joshua Wong said he could take it though it would be difficult. And Agnes Chow, 24 years old, cried after the verdict was pronounced. Joshua Wong was locked in the solitary confinement. The authorities locked him in the solitary cell with no flush toilet and examined his excrement. He said they claimed he was wiretapping devices or drug in his stomach and therefore the body search. Joshua also stated that the lights in the solitary cell were on for 24 hours, so he had to cover his eyes with a mask in order to sleep. Agnes Chow, known as a goddess of democracy in Hong Kong, was imprisoned before her birthday. Just a few days earlier, she had posted a YouTube video in which she enjoyed cake and drinks. Her face was beaming like that of any young woman who can enjoy her life. This fact only depressed the mood and made everyone sad.
It is even more important for us Hong Kongers to not surrender and to continue to believe in the universal values.
China's relentless repression of Hong Kong was foreseeable long beforehand. Although the Communist Party of China ostensibly asserts Marxism, it is difficult to explain the current state of China, because it would go too far to apply the old revolutionary theory to current China. Xi Jinping is now encouraging the down-to-countryside movement that was established during the Mao Zedong period. The authorities are now calling on young people suffering from unemployment in big cities to move to provincial towns or the countryside and not just to stay in the large cities. However, it is impossible to go back in time and restore the previous one. Although China's fundamental economy has proven to be weak since the US-China trade war, the size of the Chinese economy has grown tremendously since Deng Xiaoping, after opening Chinese market to the world and joining the WTO. Precisely for this reason, the new attempt, which was already used 50 years ago, that down to the countryside movement made no sense in this situation. Xi Jinping has hastened the implementation of the national advancement and people retreat, and the authorities are suppressing business owners and confiscating property. The internal situation of Xi Jinping does not look so good right now. Since he took over power, he has relentlessly eliminated political opponents and thus stoked internal discontent. External tensions as well as pressure from all Western countries are mounting, including US sanctions against China. In this situation, there is an ideology that is actively applied to China. It is the theory from a German of Carl Schmitt. There is an article from The Atlantic, and the title is The Nazi Inspiring China's Communist. A decades-old legal argument used by Hitler has found support in Beijing. The political philosopher and lawyer Carl Schmitt was Hitler's favorite. He joined the Nazi Party in 1933, and although he only served 3 years in party, his ideas on separation of liberalism formed the theoretical basis for Hitler, who oppressed the Jews and invaded other countries. While liberal lawyers emphasized the rule of law in conflicts of interest, Carl Schmitt insisted that power has the last word. His idea was that if power doesn't take control of the law, it can't protect the people from external threats. He argued that too much rule of law would only hamper community decision-making, also defining politics as an act of distinguishing enemies from comrades. Carl Schmitt's idea is therefore a political philosophy that can be applied to Xi Jinping. Haig Patapan, a politics professor at Griffith University in Australia, said that theory of Schmitt gives China an opportunity to anchor the party's legitimacy on more primal forces. nationalism and external enemies rather than the time-worn notion of class struggle. China's fascination with Sumi took off in the early 2000s when the philosopher Liu Xiaofeng translated the Sumi theory into Chinese. His ideas energized the political science, philosophy, and law departments of China's universities. Chang Dan-hong, a law professor at Peking University, called Sumi the most successful theorist and said China also should value his constitutional doctrine. Indeed, China applied Carl Schmitt's theory to the Hong Kong's problem. Professor Chang Dan-hong is a scholar who defends Hong Kong's national security law. According to Carl Schmitt's theory, he acted as a Chinese advisor, arguing that national norms take precedence over the Constitution, which includes civil rights. In a book titled China's Hong Kong, Jiang Shigong, a professor at Beijing University, argued that the Chinese Communist Party's favorable side should be chosen when the concept of sovereignty and the rule of law collide. Jiang is also widely credited with authoring the 2014 Chinese government white paper that gives Beijing comprehensive jurisdiction over Hong Kong. So his remarks are interpreted like this. In the concept of the one country, two system, a one China proposal should take precedence over a two-state system that provides for 50 years of autonomy. Rian Mitchell, a law professor at Hong Kong University of China, rated them. Chang Dan-hong and Jiang Shigong have best implemented Carl Schmitt's idea in Chinese politics since the 1990s. In Hong Kong, when mass protests broke out against national security law, other Chinese scholars defended this practice. Chi Fengfei, a Hong Kong specialist at Lenmin University, also said that a series of protests threatened the prosperity and security of Hong Kong, and that Hong Kong's national security law was aimed at protecting Hong Kong from external infiltration. This is an example of Carl Schmitt's applied theory. Not only in Hong Kong, but also in autonomous regions like Xinjiang Uyghur, Inner Mongolia, and Tibet, China continued to undermine minority identities and continue the dictatorship. Nowadays, Xi Jinping is called as Hitler because he resembles Hitler, who invaded foreign countries with a policy of exterminating Jews. Xi Jinping's plan to revive the great Chinese people and Chinese dreams is no different from Hitler's call for the glory of Aryans and extermination of the Jews. However, unfortunately, Xi Jinping follows the Carl Schmitt theory, who was Hitler's theoretical advisor. Thanks for watching and click the likes, also comment. Be safe.